Greetings, brothers and sisters within the Kingdom of England, Empire of Albion. It is I, your humble brother, Dion de Belmont, from the illustrious noble house of Belmont. And today is May 8th, 2976 of the Berber calendar, which is equivalent to your 2026 Gregorian calendar. And like always, we love to say here, it is a beautiful time to be alive. First, I have to give honors and give reverence to the divine creator, our divine heavenly father, as well as our divine earthly mother. I have to give honors to our kings, queens who have come and gone, to the saints, martyrs, to those trustees, to our modern king and queen, to the brothers and sisters who are doing the noble deeds, random acts of kindness all over the world. And for those of you who are now understanding who you are in regards to the healers of the planet, the protectors, the guardians, the scribes, the ones, the therapeutes, the ones who are supposed to be the uplifters for not only humanity, but the planet as a whole. So this is definitely for you, brothers and sisters, once again. But today, the video we're going to go ahead and be talking about is part 5 of the Saturn Myth by David N. Talbott. And why I like to, talk and focus on this is because of Saturn, is always getting a negative connotation in regards to, him being a malefic entity. And that may be the case in your perspective of how you look at it. And, I always have to emphasize that, these planets, they're not the ones that's making humans do what they do. They may influence, but they don't, make you. They're not the ones that's telling you. They're not the ones that just, calling the shots. We're just influenced by the heavenly bodies above, and all life and all creation here on this planet is subject to that. Nevertheless, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and talk also a little bit about this journey today and what we're getting into in regards to the Saturn myth. So, like I said, the most controversial and the most thought-provoking works of this comparative mythology and ancient cosmology ever written is coming from David Talbott. And as we like we said, enter into chapter 7, we move deeper into the ancient memory of mankind. And not the mythology, as mere fiction, but the mythology as encoded remembrance. And, this is a remembrance of a former world, a different type of heaven, a different celestial order. And it's a forgotten age that ancient civilizations across the earth struggle to preserve through symbol, rituals, religion, kingship, as well as the traditions that became sacred throughout time. Ranging from the Egyptians to the Vedic world, to the ancient Britons, to the Greeks, as well as the cultures of the Americas. And we're repeatedly encountering the same archetypes, the same cosmic patterns, and the same recurring memory of a golden age that centered and themed around Saturn. The question is, why? Why are we seeing the same repeated pattern? Why the ancient civilizations, separated by oceans, seem to describe similar celestial events? The divine mountains, the world pillars, cosmic dragons, and radiant crowns and polar gods ruling from the center of heaven. So today we're going to once again, through chapter 7, going to examine these ideas and carefully and critically and symbolically continue, diving into these thoughts. And like I said, as always, this stream is not about blind belief. It's about investigation. So we have to utilize that mindset when we're going through these chapters. Pattern recognition also. So like we're saying, this common theme that seemed to be mirrored throughout, various cultures all over the world, separated by vast amounts of land or water. And then also too, comparative analysis, very utilizing, history, the mythology, the cosmology, and the psychology of the ancient people or the ancient man intersecting all together. So I encourage everyone, especially those who are going to be in the chat, to engage respectively, and think deeply and just follow the evidence presented within the text itself, because even the ancient scholars of the past, going from the monks, the bishops, abbots, ministers, whoever they were, in the spiritual sense, they knew this. And unfortunately today we just seem to forget or have forgotten. So that way we don't get lost in time, it's time for us to remember by bringing it back to the thought of man once again. So once again, go ahead and enjoy this discussion. Make sure you subscribe and support the channel. And let's go ahead and get started on chapter 7 of the Saturn Myth. All right. So chapter 7, titled Temple, Crown, Vase, Eye, and Circular Serpent. All right. So please pay attention, brothers and sisters, because this is good information to know, because we now have to start seeing things for what and how the ancients saw them to make sense of our reality today. All right. A primary thesis of this book is that the Saturnian configuration provoked many different symbols whose underlying relationship to a single cosmic form too often goes unnoticed. When the ancients laid out the sacred city, they sought to establish a likeness of the cosmic dwelling, a circle around a fixed center. And in organizing the first kingdoms, unifying once separate territories, the founders followed the same celestial plan. There was only one dwelling of the great God, but this dwelling inspired imitative forms of varying scale and varying ritual functions. At root, the Creator's home was simply the place, the land, the holy abode, or the enclosure. Only with the construction of imitative cities does the God's residence become the cosmic city. And only after organization of imitative terrestrial kingdoms can one meaningfully term the heavenly abode a celestial kingdom. What the smallest city and grandest empire have in common is an identical relationship to the Saturnian enclosure. Distinctions of scale down here do not alter the fact that the celestial city and kingdom are absolutely synonymous. In addition to the images of the Saturnian band reviewed in the foregoing sections, several others require attention. The temple. Like the ancient city and kingdom, the terrestrial shrine copies Saturn's dwelling. Saturn, as we have seen, founded the first temple. Though the local temple acquired its own special functions and attributes, the ritual leaves no doubt that the cosmic house, shrine, and chamber mean the same thing as the city of heaven. Pause. So as we see, the first temple was created by Saturn, underneath Saturn. In my opinion, I would probably say a king who was truly based off of, because we know the ancestors all practice astrology, it would be someone who, was very Saturnian in nature based off of his astrological chart. All right. That's just my opinion, but we'll continue. Sumerian texts describe the cosmic city of Eridu as the house built of silver, adorned with lapis lazuli, the abyss, cosmic ocean, the shrine of the goodness of Enki, befitting the divine decrees. Eridu, the pure house having been built. Conversely, the celestial temple is called the primeval city. The very title of many Sumerian cities themselves. And the hymns say of the Kes temple, indeed it is a city, indeed it is a city. Who knows its interior? The Kes temple is indeed a city. Who knows its interior? Enki, the Sumerian Saturn, erects his temple or sea house as the crowning act of creation. After the water of creation has been decreed, after the name Hagal, abundance born of heaven, like the plant and herb, had clothed the land, the Lord of the abyss, the king Enki. Enki, the Lord who decrees the fates, built his house of silver and lapis lazuli. It's silver and lapis lazuli like sparkling light. The Father fashioned fittingly in the abyss. This is the far famed house built in the bosom, heart center of the nether sea. The cosmic dwelling becomes the good temple built in a good place, floating in the sky, heaven's mist. It is said to float like a cloud in the midst of the sky. In constructing the earthbound copy of the temple above, states Jastrow, the Babylonians strove to make both the exterior and interior resplendent with brilliant coloring, brilliant as the sun. The purpose is clear, to imbue the local temple with a luster matching that of the prototype. Symbolically, the local temple takes on the radiance of the celestial, becoming the house of light, house of the brilliant precinct, or lofty and brilliant wall, the house of great splendor, the beautiful house, the brilliant house. Pause. So they're saying that the house below, which is known as the temple, is built and reminiscent of the house above. All right, which is heaven. So it's explaining that there's a city in heaven above that below was supposed to be created in semblance or just the same, synonymously as. To deal with the Sumero-Babylonian imagery in its own terms, one must understand the cosmic temple not only as the God's house, but more. The temple fashioned in the abyss is the created earth. You hear that? The earth is the temple. All right, so the temple fashioned in the abyss is the created earth. The Sumerian Iker, the house of Enlil on the cosmic sea, Apsu means both temple and earth, land, place. Grad confirms the identity of the cosmic temple and the created earth when he notes the cosmic dimensions of the temple. It fills the whole world. The Sumerians celebrated the god shrine as the pure place, earth of An, that is, Saturn's earth. Throughout the previous sections, I've contended that Saturn's dwelling produced the original myth of the lost paradise, that the great god's house enclosed the cosmic land of fertility and abundance is the straightforward declaration of the Sumerian temple hymns. Though some of the lines in the following quotes are broken, one cannot fail to discern the consistent theme. House, mountain, like herbs and plants beautifully blooming. Your interior is plenitude. The temple is built, its abundance is good. The Kes temple is built, its abundance is good. House with well-formed jars set up under heaven, full of the abundance of the midst of the sea. Ima, the house of Sarah, the faithful man, has enlarged for you. Uma and plenty. With good fortune it is expanding, its abundance and well-being. House, from your midst comes plenty. Your treasury is a mountain of abundance. Your interior is the place where the sun rises, endowed with abundance, far-reaching. House with the great meads of Kulaba. Its has made the temple flourish. Well-grown fresh fruit, marvelous, filled with ripeness, descending from the midst of heaven. One sees that the temple stands as the cosmic midst or center. From its interior shines the primeval sun. It houses the flourishing celestial garden. The chamber of the great god, according to Sumerian creation myths, was that in which dwelt the original generation of men. Example, the company of gods to whom all races trace their ancestry and from which each race took its name. The chamber was the prototype of Eden, the ancestral birthplace. In the Sumerian myth of the primordial hero Tagtug occurs a lively description of the god's chamber as a celestial garden. Occupying the house of abundance are the Anunnaki, the great god's companions. and here came into being the first generation of mankind. The abundance of the goddess of flocks and the grain goddess, the Anunnaki in the holy chamber, ate and were not filled. The Anunnaki in the holy chamber drank and were not filled. In the holy part, for their God's benefit, mankind with the soul of life came into being. Then Enki said to Enlil, Father Enlil, flocks and grain, in the holy chamber have been made plentiful. In the holy chamber mightily shall they bring forth. By the incantation of Enki and Enlil, flocks and grain in the holy chamber brought forth. Pasture they provided for them abundantly. For the grain goddess they prepared the house. The flowering of the celestial garden is a widespread theme which I touched on briefly in the earlier discussion of the Egyptian creation, and which I intend to explore at greater length in the subsequent volume. It is surely worthy of note, however, that the great God's chamber is the same as the holy park in which mankind was brought forth. If one reads the above lines in the light of the Egyptian symbolism, which equates the first generation of gods, men, with the abundance erupting from the Creator, the Sumerian myth takes on greater meaning than might otherwise be evident. Immediately after this statement, mankind with the soul of life came into being. Enki declares that flocks and grain in the holy chamber have been made plentiful. The primeval generation was the same thing as the overflowing abundance, both referring to the luminous debris which erupted from the Creator as speech. You hear that? So speech is what brought forth life. Thus the flocks and grain of the celestial garden, according to the Sumerian text, are brought forth by the incantation, speech, of Enki and Enlil, two competing figures of the single Creator. To my knowledge, such close parallels between the Egyptian and Mesopotamian creation accounts have never received adequate attention by comparative mythologists. The blossoming chamber of the Sumerian creation also finds a counterpart in the Hawaiian Genesis myth, reproduced by Lenini Melville. Man descended from the sacred shrine of the king who created the heavens, the shrine of the king of heaven who caused that distant realm to bloom and flower, the consecrated realm of Tiv, the world of Tiv. Both the Hawaiian and Sumerian sources place the genesis of the race in the great god's shrine or chamber, likened to a flowering garden. Just as the Sumerian chamber or temple corresponds to the earth, so does the Hawaiian sacred shrine answer to the world of Tiv. The Egyptian temple. As in Mesopotamia, Egyptian sources portrayed the primeval temple as the visible dwelling of the sun god. May I shine like Ra in his divine splendor in the temple. Homage to thee, Osiris Nu, O thou who art within the divine shrine, who shinest with rays of light and sendest forth radiance from thyself. Every god shall rejoice at the life of Ptah when he maketh his appearance from the great temple of the aged one, which is in Anu. Thou art the ruler of all the gods, and thou hast joy of heart within thy shrine. The great god shrine, house, or temple is the band of glory, the Aten. Your pavilion is enlarged in the interior of the Aten, states a coffin text. When the Egyptians laid the foundation of a temple, they consecrated the enclosed ground as the primeval territory of the domain of the sun god. Each temple became a miniature of the cosmic habitation founded in the creation. Thus, the Egyptians viewed the Edfu temple as the veritable descendant of the mythical temple that was created at the dawn of this world. Raymond tells us, the foundation ground became the blessed territory from the time of the primeval ones, the hinterland of the primeval water. This was the province of the beginning, the blessed homeland. In Hebrew cosmology reports Wensink, the sanctuary is the type and representation of cosmos and paradise, and as such, a power diametrically opposed to chaos. From the very spot of the Hebrew temple, the first ray of light issued and illuminated the whole world, Indeed, the temple was the whole world, according to Midrash. The temple corresponds to the whole world. Tradition states that the primordial light was not identical with the light of the sun, moon, and stars, but lit up the temple from its center and radiated out through the windows. The cosmic temple, in other words, was the lost land of the dawn or first sunrise. All right, so the whole world, so Paul, so far as we read and see, was known as the temple. So from corner to corner, coast to coast, no matter where you go, wherever your feet lands, is considered the temple. All right, so if you're on this planet, you're in the temple. Temple and womb. Nothing is more basic to the imagery of the temple than its identity as the cosmic womb. Newman observes, just as the temple is a symbol of the great goddess as house and shelter, so the temple gate is the entrance into the goddess. It is her womb, and the innumerable entrance and threshold rites of mankind are expressions of this numinous feminine place. Throughout the Near East, states Allegro, the temple was designed with a large measure of uniformity, and this sacred abode is now recognizable as a microcosm of the womb. Pause. So the temple is a representation of the womb, or the womb itself is the planet, and it's the great goddess. That's why we call her Mother Earth. It's a goddess. She's a goddess. So the temple itself it's a divine, like I say or I speak every time as I do my intro, the divine mother, the divine earthly mother. All right, so let's continue. Not in one land, but in every segment of the world. Exactly. The sacred text confirmed this identity of temple and womb. The Egyptian great god resides within the womb of the goddess, as in a house or chamber. The goddess Hathor is the house of Horus. The name of Isis means chamber, house, abode, etc. And the Egyptians claimed she was the house in which Horus came into being. Nut is the good house, and Neith the house of Osiris, while the name of Nephthys means lady of the house. The identity stands out in this hymn to Ra. I am exalted like the holy God who dwells in the great temple, and the gods rejoice when they see me in my beautiful coming forth from the body, cat, womb of Nut, when my mother Nut giveth birth to me. To shine as the sun within the cosmic temple is to come forth within the womb of Nut, the good house. Among the Egyptians, notes Seth, house served as a poetic expression for the womb. Clearly, this poetic expression originated as a radical identity and a ritual. Just as the goddess titles denominate her the house or temple of the great god, so does the temple receive the character of the goddess. Ptah's temple at Memphis is the mistress of life, and an inscription in King Seti's first funerary temple states, I am thy temple, thy mother forever and forever. The holy chamber for which Ra shines forth is, according to Piankov, the holy chamber of the netherworld, Tuwa, the womb of divine birth. Throughout Mesopotamia, one discovers the same features of the temple. Here too, the cosmic house appears as the womb of the primeval Genesis. Urukug is the shrine which causes the seed to come forth, while the temple of Ururu is the procreative womb of Emma, and the temple of Alilzad, the house of exalted seed. The Mesopotamian temple or chamber thus gives birth to the god. Tammuz, the man-child, is the offspring of the house, and Marduk, the child of the holy chamber. In the Babylonian creation epic, we read, in the chamber of fate, the abode of destinies, a god was engendered, most able and wisest of gods. In the heart of the Apsu was Marduk created. You have taken my seed into the womb, have given birth to me in the shrine. declares King Gudea to the goddess Gadumdud. One can compare the Sumerian text. In a great house he has begotten me. As in Egypt, the god, the gate of sanctuary is conceived as the entrance to the womb of the goddess. Hence, Sargon styles one of the gates of his palace Bilit Ilani, mistress of the gods. All right. So now we move next to the crown. Among all ancient races, the crown, wreath, or headband signified religious and political authority. Yet this worldwide function of the crown reflects no self-evident fact of human nature or of the external world. What was the source of the crown's numinous powers? The symbols of kingship have their origin in a universal monarch, the ancestor of kings and founder of the kingship ritual. Legends of the great god say that when he established his kingdom, he wore as a crown his circle of glory, a halo, aura. Before Egyptian rulers have donned the white crown, the crown of the great father Osiris shed its light at the cosmic center. His crown clothed the sky and consorted with the stars. The primordial sun, reports Pliny, established civilization and first triumphantly crowned heaven with his glowing circle. In the ritual of the Mandeans, it was the first man who wore as a crown the circle of radiance, light, and glory. One could hardly make a greater mistake than to assume, with so many modern scholars, that the crowns worn by gods are simply projections onto the heaven order of the crowns worn by terrestrial kings. Divorced from the crown of the universal monarch, the headdress of the local king becomes a meaningless artifact. Whatever powers the crown may possess, they derive from the cosmic prototype. One second. All right. Okay, let's continue. Before Egyptian, let me remember I stopped. All right, fundamentally, the crown is an enclosing band. The most important component of the Egyptian crown was the gold headband, while the great god was master of the headband. The Sumerian word for crown, uku, means great band. In the classical etymologies refuted by Onians, the crown possesses the concrete meaning of a circle or band, enclosing a god or a man. When the Egyptian priests placed the sacred band on the head of the king, deeming him the regent of the sun god Ra, they were guided by the image of the great god himself, whose hieroglyphic was the enclosed sun, showing the sun god in the circle of the Aten. Thus, in the Theban ritual, the gods Horus and Set say to the new king, I will give thee a life like unto that of Ra, years even as the years of Tim, and I will establish the crown upon thy head, even like the Aten on the head of Amen-Ra. The great god not only wears the crown of glory, he dwells in it. He appears in a white crown or comes forth from the very great crown. In the Book of the Dead, one finds the divine being who dwelleth in the Neem's crown. More specifically, the god's crown is his spouse, the womb goddess who emanated from the god, yet gave birth to him. O red crown, O Enu, the crown, O great one, O Enu, thou hast come forth from me, and I have come forth from thee. To wear the crown is to reside within a womb, or conversely, to be born in a womb is to wear the crown. It is in this sense that one must understand the statement of the coffin text that the god is born in the crown, or that the king is the son of the white crown. The same identification of crown and womb explains the statement that Osiris first shone forth, fully crowned from his mother's womb. Does not the sign, the enclosed sun, depict the fully crowned god within the cosmic womb? I am he who girt about with his girdle, and who cometh forth from the goddess of the Uret crown. This statement from the Book of the Dead concurs with numerous other references in the Egyptian texts, equating the crown with the mother goddess. In the pyramid text we read, I know my mother, I have not forgotten my mother, the white crown. The same text say of the king, thy mother is the great wild cow, living in the cob, the white crown, the royal headdress. Accordingly, the Egyptians esteemed the goddess Isis as the crown of Ra Horus, and the goddess Tefnut as the diadem of Ra. The identity of goddess and crown has, in fact, been fully acknowledged by Clark and Frankfurt, among others. Yet Frankfurt's explanation amounts to this. The goddess is simply the personification of the power of royalty, and hence is imminent in the crown. The statement tacitly assumes that the local crown comes first, or came first, who knows why, and that the great goddess personifying an abstract power of royalty came to be identified with the crown simply because the crown was a symbol of royal power. But the relationship of the crown and womb amounts to a radical identity. Both take their character from the same visible band. Ignored by Frankfurt is the explicit equation of both the goddess and the crown with the circle of the Aten. That the god dwells in the crown means that the crown is the god's house or temple, what the Egyptians called the temples of the white crown. Speaking of the headgear of Sumer and Egypt, Levi notes that in each case it bears a relation to the monuments. If the crown may, in fact, be considered as itself a little sanctuary. But what was the source of this unexpected identity? Sumerian temple hymns repeatedly invoke the cosmic temple as the great god's crown. The temple of Ekwadura is the crown of the high plane, and Separ, the sanctuary of the heaven, star of heaven, crown born by Ningal. The Kes temple becomes the great true temple, reaching the sky. Temple, great crown, reaching the sky. The same identity prevails elsewhere, hence observing that the Mexican Quetzalcoatl wears his temple as a crown, reports that such symbolism pervades early Chinese bronzes. One notes also that royal house, worn as a crown by the famous Diana of Ephesus. Like the sacred abode of all great gods, the latter crown temple has 4 doors facing in 4 directions. Since the cosmic temple is the same thing as the cosmic city, one should not be surprised to find that the city also appears as the crown. In the Book of the Dead, a description of Ra, when at the beginning he rose in the city of Sutenhanen, Heracleopolis, crowned like a king in his rising. The evidence suggests that the city or kingdom in which Ra first shone forth was the very circle of glory which he worn as a crown, and this is why in the symbols, see the symbol, the white crown with the enclosed X, and then a chariot looking crown or the other red crown with the X. The Egyptians combined the Hetch crown and the Tishar crown with the symbol of the goddess Nut, the city or the Holy Land. In accord with this identity, the Babylonian hymn proclaims, Borsippa, the cosmic city is thy crown. Often the crown takes the form of a city wall. The most famous example, perhaps, is the crown of Tyche of Antioch, which corresponds to the turreted wall of the city. Concerning the goddess of the city crown, Shur writes, The whole city wall in a diminutive version was placed on her head, beginning with Astarte and continuing with Aphrodite of Greek and Roman times. Yet while the crown was assimilated to the city, which wall remains unexplained by the modern researchers, and will continue to remain a puzzle until scholars acknowledge the concrete form of the mother goddess, city, and crown as a single band of light around the great god. The vase. Myth-making imagination also expressed the Saturnian band as a vase or receptacle housing the sun god and his waters of life. All the waters of the world, according to the ancient belief, originated in the solitary god. As a symbol of the all-containing receptacle above, the round vessel became a popular figure of the mother goddess. The great goddess, as divine water jar, is the mistress of the upper waters, observes Newman. G. Elliott Smith notices the close connection of the mother goddess with the vase. The ideal of the mother pot is found not only in Babylonia, Egypt, India, and Eastern Mediterranean, but wherever the influence of these ancient civilizations made itself felt. It is widespread among the Celtic-speaking peoples. It became also a witch's cauldron, the magic cup, the holy grail, the font in which a child is reborn in the faith. The vessel of water here being interpreted in the earlier sense as the uterus or the organ of birth. See figure 29, the goddess Nut as the revolving water container. The vase in the Egyptian hieroglyphs denotes the celestial goddess Nut and the female principle in general. An interesting Egyptian illustration depicts Nut bearing the cosmic vessel on her head and spinning around with sufficient speed to cause drops of water to fly outward. The mother goddess is the revolving water container in heaven. Sumero-Babylonian cylinder seals show the purifying waters of the Apsu descending from a vase regarded as the mother womb. The vase is in the heaven of Anu, called the place of the flowing forth of the waters which open the womb. The same symbolism of the vase prevails in China, according to Hentz, who relates the symbolism of the feminine container to a global tradition. The Zuni addressed the sacred pot as the mother, while a Peruvian jar covered with breasts on all sides obviously expresses the identical theme. Thus does the sun god dwell in the vase, renewing his birth each day. I have come forth from my Djinnet jar, and I will appear in the morning, reads an Egyptian pyramid text. I remind the reader that archaic day means our night. Remember, so the daytime means nighttime means daytime, anciently, brothers and sisters. So right now, when the sun is out, this is actually the nighttime. When it gets dark, that's going to be pretty much truly the daytime. To the same symbolism belongs to the Hindu Vashishta, who was born from the jar and is obviously akin to the Iranian Farvashi Kumbaya, the son of the jar. Muslim tradition echoes this theme in declaring that the soul of Muhammad pre-existed in a vase of light in the world of spirits. The Chinese alchemist Wei Po-yang says, the true man living in a deep abyss floats above the center of the round vessel. The mother vase housing the man-child appeared in Mexico. Among the Mayans, writes Nathal, the vase symbolized the divine essence of light and the life proceeding from the heart of heaven. Appropriately, they designated the symbolic vase as the navel or center, a characterization which agrees with Newman's interpretation of the vase as the center from which the universe is nourished. The vase denotes, in other words, the celestial earth, the original land of abundance, while the Egyptian priest of Ptah claimed the primeval land to have been fashioned by Ptah on his potter's wheel. The hymns also extol the pottery which Ptah molded, in clear reference to the same primordial enclosure, the subject of the realm of the ancestors, where the resurrected dead receive the fresh water in the jar which Ptah has fashioned. All right, figure 3 is the mother goddess as a water container, Vase from Troy, fourth stratum. Figure 31, the man-child in the vase from Mexico, Vienna Codex. All right, so they're explaining that the earth, the vase itself is symbolic as the mother goddess. And from the vase comes through child or earth, bore humans, man. All right. Here is the declaration of the potter in the pyramid text. As translated by Faulkner, I am your potter upon earth. I have come and I have brought to you this mansion of yours, which I built for you on that night when you were born on the day of your birthplace. It is a beer jar. Most instructive is Faulkner's parenthetical seek, following the phrase of beer jar, as if to suggest that the scribe suffered a lapse of reason. What could a beer jar have to do with the great god's mansion and birthplace? Among the Egyptians, beer symbolized fertility and abundance flowing from on high. The ritual beer jar was the primeval land, the dwelling which congealed around the Great Father, and as the cosmic womb gave birth to him. The same text in which the above lines appear locate the potter god in this island of earth. Vessel, temple, earth, and womb denote the same celestial enclosure. The eye. One of the most mysterious symbols which have come down to us is the solitary and the all-seeing eye. In ancient Egypt, where the most complete information is available, the symbol pervades the monuments and the sacred texts of all periods. The eye is the key to the religion, states Clark, yet no archaic sign has been less understood than the mystic eye. The eye is the commonest symbol in Egyptian thought and the strangest to us. Is the eye, as almost uniformly asserted, the solar orb? Nowhere is the weakness of solar mythology more apparent than in its handling of this puzzling symbol. One Egyptologist after another, by following the solar interpretation, passes over in silence the many enigmatic particulars of the eye symbolism. To my knowledge, the only well-known authority to reject categorically the solar interpretation is Rudolf Anthes. After devoting extensive research to the eye of Ra, Anthes concludes that the eye apparently never was the sun. Yet Anthes, seeking an answer in the heavens as they appear to us today, does not begin to unravel the interconnected symbolism of the eye. Strictly speaking, the Egyptian eye is neither a sun nor a star, but the circle or enclosure fashioned by the Creator as his celestial home. The great God resides in the eye as the pupil. One of the most common names of the eye in Egypt is Utkat, hieroglyphically rendered as Eye of Horus. The Utkat hieroglyph combines three closely related signs. One, the eye, meaning to see and also to form, fashion, create. Two, to fashion, to encircle. And three, the flail, the cord to bind, to encircle. The all-seeing eye is the created enclosure, the bond around the primeval sun. Thus, the God has his home in the Utkat, the eye, or the Utchat. And I am the Utchat, or the Utkat, I want to say it's the Utkat. And I am he who dwelleth in the Utkat. And enter thou in peace, Imhotep at rest into the divine Utkat. A coffin text reads, I am Horus in his eye, while the Harris magical papyrus states, I am Shu under the form of Ra, seated in the middle of his father's eye. In the Book of the Dead, one finds, I am the pure one in his eye. I am he who dwelleth in the middle of his own eye. Thus does the great God reside in the enclosure of the eye as a pupil. Praise be to thee, O Ra, exalted Sekhem, aged one of the pupil of the Utkat, the eye. I am in the Utkat. I sit and am as the pupil of the eye. God, the pupil of whose eye is terrible is thy name. When the text speak of the eye of Ra, who was in his Aten, one recognizes that the eye is the Aten, for the Egyptians treated the eye sign and the Aten sign as interchangeable symbols. Just as the I-10 constituted the protective enclosure, so did the eye. O Osiris, Nu, the great Nu, the eye of Horus protecteth thee, it keepeth thee in safety. He is Horus encircled with the protection of his eye. My refuge is my eye, my protection is my eye. I am the dweller in the eye. No evil or calamitous things befall me. Such references surely indicate that the eye is not the sun or the sun god, but the goddess, in whose protective womb the sun god dwells. As a matter of fact, though Egyptian ritual presents the goddess under many names, all primary figures of the goddess received the appellation Eye of Ra. This includes, among others, Isis, Hathor, Nut, Saket, Iusaset, Mihert, Bast, Tefnut, and of course the goddess Uchat or Ukat, Eye. The complex meshes of eye symbolism, states Clark, are woven all around the Egyptian goddess, and she cannot be understood or compared with other goddesses until they are unraveled. Yet while Clark notes several interesting associations of the eye and the goddess, he fails to discern the eye's root character as the protective enclosure. Only the direct identity of the eye in the cosmic womb will explain its context in the ritual. The child who is in the eye of Horus has been presented to thee. I am he whose being has been molded in his eye. Horus is said to rear and nourish the multitudes through that unique eye. Mistress of the divine company, the lady of the universe, all cosmos. The very goddesses whom the text depict as the eye of the primeval sun are also called the house, as we should expect. As to the identity of the eye in the temple, Egyptian sources leave no room for debate, though I know of no Egyptologist to observe the connection. The temple of Karnak is the healthy eye of the Lord of all, a striking parallel to the Sumerian temple as the house, eye of the land. In the book of the Phylons, Ra harkens back to the remote age when I was in the temple of my eye, while the book of the dead speaks of the son of Osiris residing within the temple of his. Figure 32, the eye of the resting god. Ayin Anu. All right, so it says, so Osiris resided within the temple of his Ayin Anu. Elsewhere, one finds the primeval sun coming forth in the sanctuary of my eye. Of course, no one who automatically thinks sun when reading eye is likely to reflect on the overlapping symbol of the eye as a band or enclosure. Nor can one so trained meaningfully explain why throughout Egyptian ritual, the eye appears in conjunction with the crown. In the Egyptian mystery play, the king is commanded, take thou thy eye, hold to thy face, and the command is carried out by placing crown upon the king, for the crown, as the symbol and seat of royal power, is called the Eye of Horus. The pyramid texts say, Horus has given you his eye, that you may take possession of the Uret crown. O king, stand up, don the Eye of Horus, that you may go forth in it, that the gods may see you clad in it. As to the identity of eye and crown, one could not ask for more explicit statements than these. I wear the white crown, the eyes of Horus. O Osiris the king, I make firm the eye of Horus on your head, a headband. I give you the crown of Upper Egypt, the eye which went up from your head. The circle of glory issued from the central sun. If the god wears the eye as a crown, so also does he take the eye as a throne. And this relationship of the eye and throne helps to explain the hieroglyph for Osiris, in which the two symbols appear together. But to conventional schools, the combination makes little sense. In Budge's opinion, for example, there is no clear basis for the assimilation of the two signs, and the difficulty is hardly likely to be cleared up. Yet, to anyone aware of the interrelated images of the Aten, the Osiris hieroglyph will pose no mystery. The throne is the symbol of Osiris. For example, Isis is the throne, but the same goddess appears as the eye. so that Osiris sits enthroned within the circle of the eye. Indeed, the Egyptian language says as much when it turns the throne Ash-Uchat to the throne of the eye, and the Book of the Dead brings the eye and the throne into connection with the crown and egg. I am the Lord of the crown. I am the eye, my egg. My seat is on my throne. I sit in as the pupil of the eye. Though the influence of the eye was felt far beyond Egypt, it is the integrated Egyptian imagery that throws light on later developments of the symbol. While the texts sometimes speak of two eyes, see the section on the cosmic twins, fundamentally there is only one eye of the great God. I am Ra, who wept for himself in his single eye, states the coffin text. The single eye of Ra or Horus is paralleled by the clear seeing eye of the Sumerian Enki. The single eyes of the Norse Odin, the Iranian Ahura Mazda, and the Mexican Tolala. The ageless eye of all-seeing Zeus, and the one eye of heaven belonging to the Japanese Ama no Ma Hatotsu. The Egyptian eye of Horus in the Book of the Dead is that which shineth with splendors on the forehead of Ra. One could easily understand how subsequent generations possessing only conceptions rather than perceptions to guide them gave the great god increasingly human form, translating the central eye into the legendary third eye, which in Hindu representations appears as little more than a decorative jewel. The single eye of the Cyclops belongs to the same class of images. If the eye is not centered on the forehead, it may be located on the breast, as in the case of the Hindu demon Kambanda, slain by Rama, and the headless man encountered by Fion Osen and Coilip in the Celtic myth. Or I think that's called excuse me. So the pupil of the eye is the heart of heaven. Surely one cannot properly evaluate the fanciful one-eyed giants of the celestial and medieval age without first taking into account the celestial eye, which left a mighty imprint on the earliest ritual. The Cyclops, or wheel-eyed giant, corresponds in many ways to the god Odin of Norse mythology. Odin's all-piercing eye is also a giant wheel. In ancient cosmology, nothing is more explicit than such imagery of the enclosed sun. If the experts have failed to unravel the mystery of the eye or the wheel eye, the failure is not due to a lack of evidence, but to the habit of the researchers who from the start excluded the enclosure from the mythological investigation. The circular serpent. All right, so figure 33, Saturn as the Mithric Zervon, time, which with the central eye, the pupil of eye equals heart of heaven. Let's take a look at them. It would be quite impossible within the limited space permitted here to review all the interconnections unifying the imagery of the Saturnian band. For every instance previously cited, many others have been left out simply to avoid excessive monotony. As a final example of overlapping imagery, I shall cite the case of the circular serpent. All of the Saturnian gods, Adam Ra, An, Yama, Huang Ti, Quetzalcoatl, Kronos, reside within the fold of a serpent, dragon, fish, crocodile, etc. But this symbol cannot be evaluated in isolation from the celestial earth's eggs, wheels, temples, crowns, and eyes, which fill the ancient lexicon. In the general mystic tradition, reports Sirlot, the dragon, the serpent, or the fish biting its tail is representative of time. Of course, of time, and Father Time, of course, is Saturn. Thus, the Greeks placed in the hands of Kronos a snake which formed a ring by holding its tail in its mouth, and the circular serpent is clearly that which the Hindus call Kali, time. The Zoroastrians represented Zervan, time, by the enclosing serpent. A serpent encircles a Nahuatl calendar wheel Wheel of Time, published by Clavigero. On the famous Mexican calendar, stone twin serpents form a single enclosure around stone. The Egyptians associated the circular serpent with Atum, god of time, identifying the serpent with the cosmic waters erupting from the Creator. I am the outflow of the primeval flood, he who emerged from the waters. The serpent announces. The water serpent, issuing from Atum, constituting an aspect of the Creator, eventually forming a coil around himself. I bent right around. I was encircled in my coils. One who made a place for himself in the midst of his coils. His utterance was what came forth from his mouth. Why the reverence to the utterance of the God in association with the appearance of the serpent coil? The reason is that the serpent embodying the outflow of erupting waters was himself a manifestation of the Creator's speech. In the coffin text, the great God, or master of all, cosmos, recalls the original age while I was still in the midst of the serpent coil. And the king hopes to attain this very enclosure. The king lies down in your coil. The king sits in your circle, proclaims a pyramid text. Can the serpent be anything other than the band of the enclosed sun? The sun god Waldin Amiket, dweller in the fiery circle, is also Amihamth, dweller in his fiery serpent. Do not the circle and the serpent mean the same thing? The hieroglyphs offer conclusive evidence, though the common pictograph of Ra is the enclosed sun. The Egyptians also denoted Ra by the glyph, the serpent, showing the serpent as the band around the primeval sun. This direct identification of the serpent in the circle of the Aten enables us to test the coherence of Aten symbolism as a whole. For if the serpent denoted the band of the enclosed sun, one should find 1. That the serpent was the circle of the mother goddess and defined the limits of the all, example, the cord, egg, shield, or belt of Saturn's cosmos. 2. That the serpent enclosed the world wheel, city, throne, earth navel, and the celestial ocean. And 3. That the same serpent formed the wall of the cosmic temple, encircling the God King as a crown, enclosed the celestial waters as a base, and defined the circle of the all-seeing God. Figures 34, the Egyptian and the Mayan versions of the circular serpent as a water container. So throughout of all ancient Egypt, the circular serpent was the symbol of the Great Mother, and the hieroglyphs, the Uraeus serpent, often used in conjunction with an egg, means goddess. The goddess Uwakchat cometh unto thee in the form of the living Uraeus to anoint thy head, reads the Book of the Dead. A Karnak temple inscription states that the goddess Mut, in the form of a serpent, encircled her father Ra and gave birth to him as Khonsu. In the same way, the Babylonians knew the great goddess as the mother Python of heaven. The cosmos, according to Jeremiah, was represented as the womb of the shining Tiamat, the enclosing serpent or dragon of the primeval sea. So also did the Hindus, Cretans, Celts, Greeks, Romans, and Mexicans represent the mother goddess as a serpent or dragon. It is the same thing to say that the circular serpent enclosed Saturn's cosmos. In the Egyptian language, the coil formed by the serpent is literally the cord or the band indicated by the hieroglyphs. And the serpent itself was the rope which the Creator stretched around about, gathering the primeval waters or the primeval matter into an organized enclosure. And you have figure 35, the circular dragon, and Herapolo, coming out of Selecta Hieroglyphica, 1597. Figure 36, the alchemist circular dragon, dragon eats tail. 37, Mexican circular serpent biting its tail. Figure 38, circular serpent motif on the interior of a food basin from Sikyatki in the southwestern United States. 39, two Chinese versions of the circular dragon. 39b, the dragon encloses the central sun. 40s, the Hindu circular serpent enclosing the Bindu, or the central sun. The Alaska circular serpent, indicating close relationship to enclosed sun. All right, so in Sumero-Babylonian imagery, 2, a circular serpent called the rope of the great god encloses the original cosmos. The serpent rope is the bond of all, held by Enki or Ninurta Saturn. But the cord is synonymous with the cosmic egg and girdle, and this conjunction of Saturnian symbols makes particularly interesting the statement of the Greek philosopher Epicurus to Epiphanius, the all was from the beginning like an egg, and Pneuma, world soul and serpent wise around the egg, was then a tight band as a wreath or belt around the universe. The Orphics called this serpent Chronos, describing it as the band or the Parirata of the cosmos. The serpent bond lies around the cosmos proclaimed by the Pythagoreans. It was thus an ancient custom to display images of the cosmic egg encircled by a vast serpent. All the evidence in the foregoing sections indicates that the circle of the cosmos was the earth, or a place fashioned in the creation. Hence, the serpent who circumscribes the organized all is the same serpent whom the ancients depicted as circling the created world. In the Gnostic work, Pistis Sophia, our Lord states, the outer darkness is a great serpent, the tail which is in its mouth and is outside the whole world. As shown by Budge, the idea had its roots in Egypt, where the world encircling serpent was Apepi, a serpent with his tail in his mouth. Horopolo reports that when the Egyptians wished to depict the world, they painted a serpent. All right, so the world is depicted as a serpent, which many of us brothers and sisters have heard through various circles and schools of thought, who speaks in regards that the world is not only fashioned as a serpent, but also too created, or we were created by that which they call dragons, but seen to be as a serpent. What they call dragons also was known as serpents. All right, so it says all ancient cosmologies will speak of a world encircling serpent, say that its body formed a river or ocean, shielding the organized earth from chaos. The serpent dragon or crocodile in the Egyptian system thus denotes the celestial watercourse. Hence, the primeval serpent encircling Atum not only emerges from the cosmic sea, it itself the outflow of the primeval flood. Sumero-Babylonian cosmology knows the river of the girdle of the great god, a world encircling ocean which is also called the river of the snake. According to Hebrew and Arabic thought states Winsik, the whole of the earth is round and the ocean surrounds it like a collar. Other authors compare the circle of the ocean around the earth with a wreath, a ring, or with the halo around the moon. The commonest image of the ocean, however, is that of a serpent. Thus, the famous Leviathan grips his tail between his teeth and forms a ring around the ocean. The Scandinavian Midgard serpent occupied the same circular sea, biting his tail. The Greek Okinos, the boundary of the world, was the serpent Kronos. Even the Aztecs knew the sea as a circumambient great serpent. Nor can one ignore the identical serpent enclosing or forming the great god's throne. Muslim legends recall a brilliant serpent around the throne of Allah. Then Allah surrounded it by a serpent. This serpent wound itself around the throne. The same serpent in Hebrew accounts wound itself around the cosmic throne wheel of Solomon, and a silver dragon was on the machinery of the throne, and a silver serpent bore the wheel of the throne. One remembers also the serpentine wheeled seats of such Greek figures as Triptolemus and Demeter. The seat of the Mayan god Enlil is a serpent, much like the snake seat of the primordial pair recalled by the Miztecs. Just as the Egyptian serpent dragon Set becomes the throne of Osiris, so do the parallel figures of the Tiamat and Leviathan become the thrones of Marduk and Yahweh and Babylonian and Hebrew imagery. So also is the temple likened to the circular serpent. Sumerian hymns describe the cosmic temple in heaven like a dragon gleaming. This dragon-like abode answers to the Babylonian sanctuary of Ea, represented by a serpent or fish belonging to the same class are the Uraei, who form the walls of the heavenly dwelling of Osiris. The serpentine temples or the Draconthea of Ivory, the iguana house of Mayan ritual, and the girdling snake of the Greek Akis, which surrounded the Temenos, or inner shrine of the gods. The Muslims declared that the founding of the sacred house of the Kaaba, a serpent with a glittering appearance, wrapped itself around the wall so that its tail approached its head. All right, so as we can see, the same motif in regards to the serpent or the dragon surrounding the planet Earth or creating the planet has been passed out throughout history. All right, it says the Great Father's dwelling was the encircling serpent or dragon issuing from the cosmic sea. And it matters not whether the abode be termed a temple or a city, for the cosmic city was equally tied to the imagery of the circular serpent, as confirmed by the Egyptian illustrations of a serpent encircling the district of Hermopolis, the Hebrew imagery of Leviathan surrounding the primeval celestial Jerusalem, and the serpentine enclosure of the Teutonic Asgard, the city of the gods. Always we encounter the same serpent glittering in the light and marking out the primordial enclosure in the case of the Egyptian eye, and the identity with the Uraei serpent is spelled out with uncanny boldness. Egyptian hymns locate the enclosing Uraeis on the brow of the great god, and this circular serpent is at once the band of the single eye and the circle of the crown. He has come to you, O not crown. He has come to you, O fiery serpent. O great crown Ikat, the serpent has adorned you, because you are a horse encircled with the protection of his eye. O king, the dread of you is the intact eye of Horus, the white crown, the serpent goddess who is in the cab. To wear the crown is to wear the fiery serpent, which is in turn is to reside within the enclosure or protection of the eye. Though offering no explanation, Clark recognizes the identity of these cosmic images. The eye is elevated as the defensive cobra, which on the pattern of the earthly pharaohs encircled the brows of the high god, he writes. Figure 42, the circular serpent encircling Hermopolis. The connection immediately explains why the Sumerian musk crown, conceived as a golden band, was the great dragon. Though the circular serpent appears in many guises, at root there is only one such creature, for its diverse forms as the cosmos, earth, temple, city, throne, crown, and eye are simply the different mythical formulations of the circumpolar enclosure. These unnatural roles of the circular serpent, which mythologists tend to regard as the most irrational and unfathomable aspects of ancient symbolism, actually provide one of the most significant unifying threads. In summary, a coherent doctrine. Saturn's primordial home was a simple enclosure, a dwelling universally recorded by the sign, the enclosed sun. Myth-making imagination expressed the enclosure in many ways, and it is the very variety of formulation which testifies to the band's overwhelming impact on the ancient world. To deal meaningfully with this imagery, one must admit the influence of a celestial order vastly different from that familiar to us today. We customarily think of myth as the opposite of reality, yet the consistency of the testimony suggests that the mythical view passed down to us through sacred signs, monuments, and literature connects us with a very real world confronted by the first myth makers. The present heavens explain neither the ancient rights of kingship nor the array of astral symbols which grew around a king, who was conceived as the human incarnation of the ruling divinity in heaven. Always the ritual and symbol referred to an age different from our own, an age when Saturn, the central sun, ruled from the celestial pole, encircled by his band of glory. Saturn's band was the primeval cosmos, viewed as the planet's God's own consort, the womb on the cosmic waters. The myths alternately depict the band as a revolving island in the sky, a cord of rope forming the boundary of Saturn's domain, a shining egg, a shield, and a creator's collar, belt, or girdle. This was the earth which, in the universal creation legend, the great God raised from the celestial sea. In mythical history, it became the ancestral land of peace and plenty, Adam's paradise. Saturn's kingdom possessed the form of a great wheel. It was the creator's revolving throne, the celestial city, the lost navel or middle place, where cosmic mythical history took its start. Around the border of the heavenly land flowed the circular river or ocean. The same band was Saturn's revolving temple, which he wore as a crown, and in which he dwelt as the pupil of the all-seeing eye. As the cosmic vase, the band housed Saturn's waters of life. And finally, Saturn's band appears in the guise of a shining serpent wrapped around the central sun and denoted by the Egyptian sign, this right here. Highlight it. Divorced from the archetypal enclosure, the various symbols, temples, crowns, thrones, wheels, etc., appear as isolated forms of uncertain origin. We simply take them as facts. Why then were these forms systematically related in language, art, ritual, and myth? It is not a question of later generations recklessly joining unrelated images. The further back we go, the greater the unity. The best evidence of the harmonious vision comes from the oldest sources of ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. Exactly. Here we find the central sun wearing the cosmic city and temple as a crown. Taken as his throne, the eye of heaven, the Holy Land, or the vase of upper waters, shining in the center of the egg, called the earth, and encircled by a river which forms the wall of the temple, but also the circle of the gods. In each case, we find that the symbol refers directly to the womb of the mother goddess, enclosing the great father, Saturn. In reviewing this imagery of the enclosure, one confronts many dominant motifs of ancient religion. Whatever the mythical formulation of the band, the hymns celebrate its presence at the polar center. Yet, who can locate a source of the imagery in today's tranquil heavens? Where is this revolving river of splendor and terror? Where is the city of the white wall? The clear and radiant Holy Land, the temple, like a dragon gleaming, the throne of light, the golden egg, or the fiery serpent? If the texts present alternative versions of the band, they never question its existence in primeval times. It is the archaic reality concealed within a massive body of myths and symbols, all pointing to the signs of the enclosed sun and the compass enclosed as images of Saturn, the polar sun. And we come to chapter 8, and we're at the at the hour and 15-minute mark. And so we're going to leave off part 5 of the Saturn myth, because I like to start doing these chapters one at a time instead of just going all the way through, because I want this information that we read or just we just read to sit in and for you to be able to digest it, brothers and sisters, because we're now just kind of bringing a lot of the falsities or the misunderstandings about Saturn, about our planet, that all of the ancient civilizations in the past knew. And like he said, if you go all the way back and go to the earliest writings of their speakings, like ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt, we can even say the Greeks and Romans, everyone who has a beginning origin story, they all seem to have a common theme in regards to the creation, you know, how the planet was constructed, blah, 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 etc. Which once again goes to show that they all had originally got this from the original stock, or they themselves are all descendants from the original stock, and either they don't know it or they do, and you know, they're just trying to explain it in their own words. However that is, or whatever that is, we're just kind of starting to kind of see that we must go back in time to get a true understanding of what it is that we should know, so therefore we can have a better understanding of how our future reality is going to, you know, take place. Because like they say, history repeats itself, and it's best for us to be in the know than be, you know, out the box and out the loop. All right, so with that being said, brothers and sisters, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment at the bottom of the video. With that being said, don't forget to drink your water, take care of yourself, go out, get some sun, heal yourself in regards to, you know, by be able to detox, and then use this sun energy to help renew you. All right, so go out there, enjoy life and nature the way that it was intended, and make sure you're honoring the law of life, you know, allowing others to live according to, you know, the Creator's will. And make sure, once again, that for those of you who are on this path, that you understand that all of your actions and deeds, you know, are going to either create karma or dharma. And you, this lifetime, because you're ruled, especially if you're here on this planet, you're underneath time. So and time is also ruled by Saturn. Saturn also deals with what? Karma, and also you receiving dharma. So you want to do good deeds, especially during these times that we're living in, because you don't know what you're going to go or where you're going to land up on the other side when it's all said and done. All right, so with that being said, I love you. See you on the flip side. I'm out.